In the latter part of the 20th century, the world witnessed the rise of the powerhouse economies of Asia. Singapore, a small country with no natural resources, is very wealthy, with one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. Many attribute its economic miracle to the rigorous one-size-fits-all national education system. Singaporean students have some of the highest maths and science scores globally. Educators in Singapore and around the world now recognise that the one-size-fits-all system also has its drawbacks, and new approaches to education are required. The educational challenges of the 21st century have changed the playing field. Today's education needs to be more flexible and adaptive to equip the students not only to memorize, but to learn and think for themselves as technology explodes and the workforce faces a constantly changing landscape. Maverick architect Keng Soon sees this as a big problem.
Well, I think the realization that something is missing in Singapore is kind of increasingly dawning upon people here. That our kids are growing up in apartments on the 25th floor, and there's some research done that there are some children that whose bare feet have never touched grass until the age 12. So these are very serious issues. It's the parents, the political, cultural environment basically says, don't reinvent the wheel. It's been done before. Just go out in the world and choose the best examples and implement it. Why take a risk? I mean, and I think risk aversity increases when you get more wealthy. There's more to lose. In the days when we were growing up, I mean, we had to take risks because there was no choice. We had to do unusual things in order to get on, which means that we should be deliberately including risk-taking within our educational and cultural environment, isn't it?
In 2003, a new player enters the Singapore education landscape. David Chim, a different kind of educational entrepreneur who is passionate about the transformative effects of holistic education. It is the year of the Asian economic meltdown, the worst time for a startup business, but Chim perseveres. He comes from a creative background in film and theatre and understands the value of an adaptable mindset.
Mindchamps grew from a simple vision, and that was to design a unique education approach to prepare children for the 21st century. Firstly, we have to understand exactly what happens inside the child's brain when learning takes place. I mean, how much of learning is emotional, how much of it is intellectual, and how much of it actually relies on the non-conscious processes. Now, to answer these critical questions, we brought together a team of international experts in the field of education, psychology, and neuroscience. Secondly, we had to work out how to hold the attention of children whose brains are overstimulated but underutilized in an environment dominated by the media, interactive gaming, and obviously the internet. Education is not simply about content and skills. Primarily, it is about engagement. You see, unless a child is enthusiastic and involved, no strategy, no learning technique will work effectively. The arts, and specifically theatre and cinema, are about engagement. You see, for thousands of years, theatre was the original education media for society where the majority of the citizens could neither read or write. So coming back to the origins of theatre, which is my background, I understood the power of engagement. And you see, as an actor, when you're with your audience and you feel the energy of your audience interacting with you, that electricity, where the teacher can feel the engagement of the students, that's what I really wanted to bring to the classroom, which is why we make sure all of our teachers go through extensive training of how to engage students and bring the lesson to life. That is, to bring the content of math, science, English, whatever subject they're learning, to life. and then becomes a part of who they are.
Chim worked in collaboration with author and educator Brian Caswell. They initially collaborated on the novel Only the Heart, which was based on Chim's life as a Vietnamese refugee. Chim and Caswell set about creating educational programs which stimulate the brain to learn, remember, and understand. This was the genesis of Mindchamps.
What attracted me to David's vision was that it wanted to look at education in a different way. We need people, citizens, who are not just adept at one thing. For example, the model for the industrial society, the 20th century society, was that you open up the kid's head, you poured as much information as you possibly could, shut the kid's head off, and then sent them out to work. And they left school with a certificate, and that said all of the things that they know, and they go to an employer and say, these are all the things I know, I want a job. The employer needs them to know those things, gives them a job maybe for life. That's the 20th century model. But the world changed with the computer and the internet and the World Wide Web, because what happened was that all that information is now available. It's democratized. Everybody can access information at the touch of a button. What your function is as a citizen of the 21st century is to be able to use that information for different purposes. So I'm only employable if I can take information and synthesize it and create something new. And as well as that, I need to be able to work in a team, because I'm no longer working in my own little compartment on my own little piece of work. Everything today is about teamwork. When David came up with the idea for Mindchamps, what he wanted was to look at an approach to learning which was a 21st century approach. It was looking at the world that we live in now, what's needed in that world, and how we can best prepare kids to be functional citizens in that world and enjoy it at the same time.
Professor Alan Snyder is a neuroscientist and the father of the study of champion mindset. A fellow of the Royal Society, Professor Snyder heads the Centre for the Mind at the University of Sydney. He's renowned for his breakthrough research on autistic savants.
David Chim came to me and said he was fascinated by the exploration that we've been involved with in discovering the elements of extraordinary success, and he was particularly interested in the champion mindset. Extraordinary skills in people are alleged to be due, or supposed to be due, to obsessive practice, right, and expertise. And the autistic savant skills that people have were thought to be due to their pathological concentration on something. Who could believe that it's brain damage that causes us to have better skills? In other words, our brain deliberately inhibits our access to these special skills because it's not the skills we need. We need a brain that works on big picture concepts and not to concentrate on the detailed sensory input to our minds. And so I had to get across the idea that savant extraordinary skills are due to something that's in us all, but is not normally accessible. Why can't everyone draw just automatically? Because we don't see the individual trees, we see the forest. We don't see the parts of the face. We see a face, and once we see the face, we draw like children, we draw a concept. Look how normal children draw. They draw the symbolic representation of an object, in this case a horse, and not anything too detailed. This is a normal 4-year-old. Let's compare it to an autistic, severely autistic 4-year-old girl. She draws the detail of a horse without recognizing what the horse is. So one person knows what the horse is and draws their internal representation of it. The other person draws every detail of a horse without knowing what the horse is. And this is a girl that doesn't recognize her mother from the nurse. You know what fascinates me? There are a lot of great schools in the world, a lot of great students, but why is it so few of them go on to greatness themselves? And it certainly isn't about the education, about the reading, writing, and the arithmetic, so to speak. I say it's about the champion mindset. We should be teaching the champion mindset in school more than anything else. And that's the connection with David Chim and me.
Professor Snyder agrees to become Mindchamps Honorary Chancellor. By 2008, Mindchamps has become a highly successful educational enrichment centre in Singapore. In 2009, David Chim decides to give something back to the people of Singapore and awards 60 Mindchamps scholarships to children who, because of their social position, could never afford to attend the Mindchamps Educational Enrichment Centre. These children are all underperforming at school, and a number of them have very limiting social skills. Can Mindchamps make a difference to their educational chances? Whilst many of these students come from disadvantaged families, they share common dreams with the other students.
Nadra lives with her mum and siblings. She loves Horrid Henry books. Nicholas enjoys reading Buddhist teachings and is an animal lover. Helfie is mad about hip-hop and dreams of being a lawyer. Tian Le is very shy and wants to be a pilot when he grows up.
One of the confidence-building exercises that students do involves breaking a wooden board with their bare hands. Students write their dreams for the future on one side of the board and what's holding them back on the other. Breaking through the board symbolises a new beginning. After 5 months at Mindchamps, they sit for the important entrance exams.
Now, as most of these children were underachieving in the exams for Primary 5, we made sure that we prepare them and got them ready for their Primary 6 critical leaving exams with the right mindset and the right techniques.
Today, the 60 scholarship students will find out how well they did in the primary school leaving exams. Understandably, they are nervous. An aggregate of 188 and above could dramatically change their lives by giving them access to Singapore's better secondary schools. They achieve great results, far better than they could ever have dreamed of a few months before. 48 out of the 60 attained an aggregate mark of 188 and above. A surprisingly high number got straight A's for their individual subjects.
Interestingly enough, you might think that kids that had adversity would be somehow adversely affected, but no, you know, they're in a sense the ones that are best tuned to learning the champion mindset because they have learned how to cope with adversity. So I don't find adversity an impediment to imbibing the champion mindset, and David Chim recognizes that and has exploited that to its full advantage.
David Chim then focuses the Mindchamps education methodology on preschool education. A syllabus is developed and Mindchamps opens its first preschool centre in Singapore.
We can all talk about science and connectivity, but in actual fact, children just love to move. They love to dance, they like to sing, and I like that too. So that's a wonderful way of learning. What attracted me to the Mindchamps philosophy was I was really fascinated with their theatrical approach in the methodology, their commitment to using narratives and stories to lead the imagination. I think when we use that, we're really engaging the children. In addition, the principles or the methodology are really based on sound pedagogical principles, grounded in very, what we call brain-compatible strategies that enhance neural connectivity so that kids can really learn and apply what they have learned in the real world.
Mindchamps Preschool Centre is highly successful and expands to a further 12 preschools in Singapore, then to Indonesia. China and India are the next countries about to embrace the Mindchamps preschool revolution.